Great. Welcome everyone to the Koochiching County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. Would you please help me open with Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item of business under county business is to approve the proposed agenda with additions and or deletions. We have one deletion I will remove is item under county business, item 11. We'll just move that to a later date. It's just not quite ready to go yet. Any other additions or deletions?
No.
Chair would accept the motion with that deletion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Hell.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre this time. Next up is to approve the minutes from the October 22nd, 2024 regular meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you. And next up under financial business, Chair would accept a motion for items A, B, C, and D. A being approve October summarized payment listing. B, approve October payroll and ACH payments. C, approve courthouse claims. And D, approve highway claims.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Any discussion on the claims? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries. Thank you. Next up is to approve warrant void in the amount of $175 for some rental. For this Little Brook City Hall. Each separate ones. I think there's a refund coming due for the cleaning of the building. There'll still be a payment going for the payment of the rental of the building, but the cleaning fee will be released because the group cleaned up after themselves. So that's the reason for the warrant void.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next item is to approve budget adjustment for jail bond. Adam?
Yep, so when we budgeted, in the 2024 budget, we did not include the 2024 jail bond proceeds in the budget. So as we do our budget reviews, obviously our revenues are showing that we're off the 15+ million for that. And per our auditors, this is a appropriate budget adjustment to adjust our budget to account for those new funding sources for the project. So
So we money in and money out.
money in, money out. So
Okay, thank you. Motion to approve the adjustment to 2024 budget to account for the $15,449,808.90 into the 2024 jail bond proceeds.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Erickson. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next up is to consider approval of the 2025 county fee schedule. Just a few things there. Driver lighting fees. The information E911 addresses went from 30 to 60, and the environmental service increase of compact to solid waste fee, which we discussed at a committee of the whole here not terribly long ago. actually the solid waste advisory is where we did that, and then came to this group here, and then forwarding on to implemented in 2025. Looks like everything else stays the same.
Was the mileage rate adjusted, or is that next year?
That'll probably be part of the GSA. Probably that's annual, usually through the GSA, but I don't know what that is yet, if it's gonna change. Van, do
We
you?
usually have a board motion to accept that in early January, I believe. So we'll review that
Okay.
at that time.
All right. So the E911 address fee application, materials and labor is, was 100, it's gonna go to 150. The E911 replacement fee includes the post and hardware, is 60, up from 30. The minimum MSW demolition uncompacted charge equivalent to 4 33-gallon bags or half-yard minimum is $6. It doesn't give me I think they just upped the minimum of the bags, not the fee on that one there. So it's still the same fee, you just get your 4 bags, and if you have less than 4 bags, you still pay the fee, so, just so we understand that. And then the cubic yard compacted went from 24 to 27, which was a compromise there, and then the cubic yard uncompacted is $12 per cubic yard, minimum of $6. The other one is the road maps for the highway department. Went from one of the road maps of Koochiching County went from $2 to $4, and the private driveway widening snow removal is $50, up from $35. I believe that's all the changes to note as yet. Sounds like what we discussed. Could I get a motion to approve the 2025 county fee schedule?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hell. Any discussion on the fee changes? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next item, item 6, is to approve committing the ARPA funds. As per the rules of the fund, we have to have them committed by the end of this year, I believe, and expended by the end of 2026. Sorry. Okay. So the ARPA committee met on October 24, 2024, and is recommending to the county board to commit the remaining $55,553.91 towards the purchase of new sheriff squads. Further, should there be any additional ARPA funds left over from other committed items, those additional funds would also be committed towards the purchase of new sheriff squads. So most of this funding has been committed. It's just this little bit left here that we talked about, and the sheriff is kind of wanting to get up to snuff with the additional deputies and kind of get them on a schedule for those cars. So we're committed some of that funding to those vehicles. So that might get us one squad, that 55,000. So
Should.
fully loaded, yeah. So, but that's kind of what we're looking for on a motion there, and then we'll be committed and we'll be good to go. We won't give anything back out of this fund here.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hell. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Thank you. Next up is to administer the oath of office to the county assessor. I see Len and Joan are here. Certainly take it away, and Joan's going to administer the oath, Len. And thanks for your service, Len, and get through this one part here, and be good to go.
A couple hours, so.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Lynn, I will just have you state your oath.
I, Len Peterson, do swear and affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, and that I will be diligent, faithful, impartial in the performance of the duties of the office of the County Assessor for the County of Koochiching in the State of Minnesota to the best of my judgment and ability in accordance with the law.
Thank you, Lynn.
Sign that.
Maybe give me a copy.
Yep, I will.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you.
Thanks, Lon.
And I'll get you a copy of this, Adam, if you need one.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you, John.
That'll be no formal motion. We had a motion earlier to approve the assessor for the next term, so this is just the following up with the oath. Next up is human resource business. Good morning, Brian.
Morning, Commissioners. Happy Tuesday.
Yes, sir. You have
So-
a couple of hires and,
A couple new rock stars joining our county.
okay,
So one started today in the Auditor Treasurer office as our Treasury Assistant. And then we had one start last week for our Child Support Enforcement Officer position. So Meredith Wilton is in that position, and then Courtney Knutson started today as the Treasury Assistant position. So it's just informational only. We had the approval to fill those job vacancies. Glad to have those filled and looking forward to moving forward with them.
thanks. Welcome.
And my last part of business is Jean Anderson had put in her retirement for the Social Services Supervisor. It was discussed and approved to take that position and split it into two different positions based on new statutes and guidelines. So we're seeking the board to approve the position descriptions for the Adult Home Community-Based Service Social Services Supervisor, and then the Children and Family Social Services Supervisor positions.
Brian, you want to discuss the process through the DDA and the grade and just talking through the review process with DDA, our third party.
DDA. So we submitted the position descriptions to DDA, David Down Associates. They approved the position descriptions. They said it should be at a PM5 schedule, which is the same rate that the current position is held at. Merit also has agreed to the positions and has posted those positions as a result. So no hiccups as far as legalities or statutory requirements.
And we got them where they need to be within the structure and within the pay grades.
Yes.
And they're in the right place here, so it'll be good to go forward.
Correct, and they are currently posted internally and externally concurrently.
Okay, excellent. Great, and Jean is in December sometime, that's her,
Derek probably knows the date better than I do.
Yeah, end of November is her last official working day.
Okay.
So the last week in November, whatever date that falls on.
so we're hoping to get a little time with them, you think, or with her before,
Fingers crossed.
hopefully?
Yeah, fingers crossed, but we'll,
Deal with it if you don't.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
We're running it 2 weeks in the merit system, so the process has already begun.
Okay.
From there, the roster will be released, and at that point, we can begin the vetting and hiring, or interviewing and then hire of the position. It has to be vetted through merits currently.
Okay,
So if there is any time, it'll be very short,
very short time, yeah.
but we do expect internal candidates to be interested.
All right. Sounds good. Anything else to add?
Nothing else to add?
Great, wishes of the board.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre. Any discussion?
Good. You're gonna backfill those positions?
Yes.
Yeah. But we already approved.
If we hire internally, then we would need to backfill positions. Yes.
Yeah, we're pretty confident we're creating the extra position, that we're gonna have better workflow and potential of collecting
per previous discussions, yes,
Yeah.
we are currently leaving money on the table and not currently fulfilling our needs or our obligations to our community. So yes, Derek meticulously did some paperwork and analysis and said that yes, there's actually going to be more money coming into the county as a result of filling these two positions from one.
All right. Any other discussion, questions? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. All right, next up is to consider appointment of ARDC. And it's a local township representative. Although we don't have townships, we do have an interested person, it sounds like.
I did speak with Kevin Eady last week. He's been on the ARDC board since 2004. He is interested in continuing his role there and is eligible for another term. So it's up to the board to what they would like to see.
So yeah, this is an internal appointment here from this board. We could go out for advertisements to do this as well. I don't know what the eligibility rules are, how many terms you can serve there. I'm not sure on that, but so that would be kind of one of the discussions we could have if anyone wants that to be a consideration. So, and I think this Commissioner Hell is on the ARDC board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there's lots of people on there, right?
There's a lot of people on there.
Yeah.
It gets pretty full, yeah.
So, large board, does a lot of long-term planning, regional long-term planning. Kind of, before anybody really ever sees anything, this is kind of where it stems from, is right here. And I know they have their long-term range plans through the state, and then this kind of gets finessed a little bit through this ARDC, on where it's going to go and what's going to get done through the group, through ARDC board. And then it kind of gets out into the public on a direction and a timeline, so. But Commissioner, or ex-Commissioner Kevin, he sat on that board while a commissioner, and then I think he was appointed to, as a 2-year term to these here?
I think they're 3-year terms.
3-year term. And I think he fulfilled his term, and he was asked if he wanted to stay on that board after his commissioner duties were up, and he decided that he would like to. So, but it's up to this board for the appointment. So with that, I will turn it over to the board.
I'll make the motion that he stays on.
Motion by Commissioner Hill
And I would second
to appoint
it. Kevin
Kevin Eady to a term of
3 years.
3 years.
I think that's,
January 25 to January 28.
Yep, 2020, January 25 to January 28, and that'll be ratified, the nomination at the ARDC annual meeting on January 16th, 2025. So thank you, Kevin, for serving. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? And motion carries. The next up is to set the 2025 board salaries. We had some discussion here at committee of the whole, budgets and stuff, and we kind of left the door open there, so we'd be open for any type of motion on what that might be here for. It's a one-year deal for us. It isn't a 3-year deal, so this is the 1-year annual salary. I accept any motion, or that would seem fit, I guess. So I know I had some discussion of keeping it as is, with a 0% increase. In the light of a larger budget adjustment, every little bit helps, or every little bit helps in light of a higher levy like this here. So, we can delay and postpone any type of commitment to a raise until further discussion next year, so we can keep it as is, but that's up to you guys. So,
I'd make a motion to leave it right where it's at.
I'd second
motion by Commissioner Roach to leave the county board salary and per diem as is. No change to the salary or the daily per diem. And we are following state statute by doing this. I have a motion by Commissioner Roach and then second by Commissioner McIntyre. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. The next item is a deletion, item 11. That'll be at a later date. And next, item 12 is a water levels committee presentation. Welcome.
Good morning. I just asked Philip to check the sound. I have 7 people online, and the text is that they were having a hard time hearing anything, so just wanted to do a sound check. Rebecca, can you hear me?
Yes, we can just hear you now, Pam. We haven't been able to hear anything else, but we can hear you clear.
Okay, that's just because I'm loud. Just wanting to make sure that you can hear everyone. Online, thank you, Rebecca. Do you want to start off by introducing, or Colonel Swenson, do you want to kick things off? You or Megan?
Can we go ahead and project the slides? Okay. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide.
Okay.
Just want to introduce sort of the team members. So the Water Level Committee is co-chaired by myself, Colonel Eric Swenson, and Megan Gardner from Canada. We have our public members. That would be Pam Tomidi, who is in the room with you now, and Travis Robb, our Canadian public member. We have our U.S. engineering advisor, this is Abby Moore, she's also on the line, and our Canadian engineering advisor, Alexandra Laptois. I said that a little bit wrong, sorry about that, Alexandra. And then we have our IJC advisors from the United States and Canada, Mark Gabriel and Rob Caldwell. Next slide. I'll be followed by next.
All right, just a quick sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, Megan.
Okay, great. So we want to start off today by just giving a quick overview to the commissioners in the room of the hydrology of the area and how water flows. I'm sure you all know, but it's good to start off on the same footing. So outlined here is the Upper Winnipeg River drainage basin in which Rainy River sits. In this image, the red arrows indicate the direction of flow. So the larger, bolder arrows are higher flow volumes, and the thinner red arrows are relatively smaller contributions. So in the south of the basin, we have the Rainy River subbasin, collects flow from the Lake Superior hydropland westward. That, of course, includes Namakin and Rainy Lakes, which flow into Rainy River. The Rainy River is the main source of inflow into Lake in the Woods. In addition, flowing into that lake is inflow from smaller tributaries and runoff from around the lake itself. And the Lake of the Woods, of course, outlets into the Winnipeg River in Canada. And from here, the Winnipeg River flows west across the border from the province of Ontario into the province of Manitoba and then into Lake Winnipeg and north. Next slide, please, Abby. All right. So a quick introduction here on how water is managed. The water levels of Rainy Lake and the Namakin chain of lakes are regulated based on what are called rule curves that are set by the International Joint Commission. These curves establish target upper and lower limits that are meant to regulate water levels for a wide variety of uses and interests. As you can see from the graph shown here, the upper and lower limits change throughout the year. So you'll see in spring, lower levels rising to a summer high and then receding again. The bounds of the rule curves are based on recommendations from extensive study that evaluates regulation alternatives that reflect stakeholder concerns, including reduction of high water events and all manner of other factors. The current rule curves were developed based on study recommendations and our balance of interests using the best available science at the time. The Adaptive Management Committee, that's a sister committee to the Water Levels Committee on the International Rainy Lake Village Watershed Board, is the committee that's tasked with ongoing investigations that support optimization of these curves as part of a routine 15-year evaluation cycle, and that's an IJC evaluation cycle, which is similar to other boards across the transboundary. The Water Levels Committee is responsible for monitoring hydrologic conditions and ensuring that the operators of the structures at the outlets of Rainy and Namakan lakes maintain the lakes as best they can within the rule curves. The Water Levels Committee also has the authority to direct dam operators to target specific water levels within the curves, which is something that we do during the spring period. Any target setting outside of the rule curves requires a supplementary order that's issued by the International Joint Commission for that to take place. So outside of the regular 15-year review cycle, in 2023, the Water Levels Committee requested a temporary amendment to our 2018 supplementary order to eliminate the distinction between the regular and high flood risk rule curves for Rainy Lake, creating just one broad rule curve through the spring period. The Water Levels Committee also requested to repurpose the March 10th decision regarding use of the high flood risk rule curve to a date by which the Water Levels Committee establishes what we call a spring regulation plan. So that what was the high flood risk rule curve is shown in the portion below the red dotted line on the graph you see on this slide. And these changes were requested by the Water Levels Committee as a result of our experiences in 2022. We felt that the high flood risk rule curve, which was a new addition in 2018, had actually caused significant misunderstanding in the public about just how much influence or control there is to be able to prevent or reduce spring flooding. So people thought because there's this extra portion of rule curve available, this committee must be able to prevent a flood, which is definitely not the case. So these adjustments to our orders have been implemented on a trial basis for the past 2 spring seasons, and now the Water Levels Committee is in the process of considering a request to make those changes permanent going forward. Next slide, please, Abby. All right, so now we've had a bit of a background on how rule curves work. We're just going to dive into how the Water Levels Committee works and how we make decisions. Yeah, go ahead, Abby, to the next slide. So the Water Levels Committee is supported by 2 engineering advisors, one from each country, and you saw those folks on the introductory slide that the Colonel reviewed. Through those advisors, the committee monitors hydrologic conditions and forecasts to help inform our water level target setting. Managing water levels, of course, is in balance between how much water can get out of the lake, how much we let out of the lake, or how much is physically possible to get out of the lake, and water flowing into the lake. If they're equal, of course, the water level will stay the same. If one exceeds the other, you're going to have the water level going up or down. A key component of understanding the inflow to the lakes is precipitation across the watershed. The Water Levels Committee reviews rainfall observed at gauges and how that is distributed across the basin to make our decisions. And shown on this slide are just a few fun images of things that our engineering advisors bring to us to show us the conditions and keep us updated. So short-term precipitation forecasts are up to 7 days out, are available from the Meteorological Service of Canada as well as the U.S. National Weather Service. There's also information from the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources. And we also have seasonal forecasts that can provide insight on what precipitation and temperature might look like 1 to 3 months into the future. Stream flow and water level observations are another component of basin monitoring. The Water Levels Committee monitors rivers and streams that feed into the major lakes, as well as current water levels of Rainy and Namakan lakes by reviewing the gauge data provided by Water Survey of Canada and the U.S. Geological Survey. Additionally, the dam operators for Namakan and Rainy Lakes provide information that we also use in terms of their outflows and what's passing through their structures. So with this information, the Water Levels Committee is sitting in our various desks, has a comprehensive view of the flow conditions across the watershed and can look at how the basin's going to respond and do some planning. During the winter, the Water Levels Committee monitors snow depth and the amount of water in the snow, or snow water equivalent, to understand expected inflows when the snow melts. And that information is provided by the U.S. and Canadian meteorological agencies, as well as snow surveys conducted by the Army Corps and Ontario Power Generation. So we harvest all available snow data that we can get our hands on. And we also consider the depth of frost in the ground as winter comes to an end, sort of the severity of winter, and that informs the capacity of the ground to absorb snow melt runoff. So in addition to just the in the moment sort of looking at all these factors, much of this information is also fed into sophisticated hydrologic models that are used to forecast water level and stream flow into the short-term future. And that is probably one of the main sources of information the Water Levels Committee uses in our spring decision making. So we're looking at how these conditions are going to influence water levels in the week-ish period going forward. Next slide, Abby. Thanks. So those of you who have been to some of our committee's pre-spring engagement meetings over the past few years, you might recall this particular graphic that's used, and it's we repeat it because it's easily understandable by the public. So what this shows is the conceptual spring checklist used by the committee to determine the risk of spring flooding. So the 5 components of high base flows, the amount of snow, and specifically the water content in the snow, the frozen ground or the frost depth, the speed at which the spring melt comes on and how fast the snow melts, and heavy spring rainfall, especially rain on snow or rain on frozen ground events. These are all key factors into whether or not there will be a spring flood. The more of these that occur, the higher the likelihood of a high water event is going to happen. Of course, as you'll recognize when you look at this list, only the first 3 of these items can actually be observed at the end of winter. The rate of snow melt and how much spring rain and how quickly it's going to rain and how much is only predicted as far out as the valid weather forecast goes. And you all look at the weather forecasts and you know that these are only good for about 3 days if you're lucky. So of course those two are one of the main challenges in the prediction of spring flooding every year. Next slide, please, Abby. All right, it's over to the Colonel again.
Okay, thanks, Megan. So Megan talked a little bit about the sort of the nuts and bolts of how we make a decision and all the factors that we consider in making decisions. I'm going to spend a minute or two talking about some of our engagements that we do with the public in order to help us make, help us receive information from the public, and also how we talk about our decision making with the public. So the Water Levels Committee utilizes input from stakeholders, the public, and indigenous communities to inform our water level targets. And the targets are where we place, where we tell dam operators to target lake levels within those established flow curves that Megan mentioned. So every February, the Water Level Committee meets with forecasting agencies and dam operators to discuss the conditions on the ground, forecasted temperatures and precipitation, and the potential for the spring flood risk. The Water Level Committee then hosts a virtual pre-spring engagement session before March 10th to provide an overview of basin conditions, forecasts, and if there is risk of spring flooding. Now, obviously, it's early, so as we've seen in recent years, sometimes things change drastically after late February, early March. Participants are encouraged to share their own observations and comments regarding water level targets during the engagement session. The Water Level Committee also hosts an in-person meeting in International Falls, Minnesota every year during the week of the Rainy Lake of the Woods Watershed Forum. This year, that forum will be held the week of March 10th. The Water Level Committee uses all the information from engagements with the forecasting agencies, our dam operators, stakeholders, and feedback from that pre-spring engagement I mentioned earlier to determine initial targets for, as Megan called it, our spring regulation plan. As conditions continue to change after March 10th, the Water Level Committee meets regularly during this time to review basin conditions and forecasts, updating our water level targets as necessary. And then just a couple years ago, we implemented a second virtual meeting. So the Water Level Committee hosts a second virtual public engagement in April to review basin conditions and forecasts. And the second engagement really serves as a check-in to see how the conditions have changed since March 10th and if the risk of spring flooding is present. There's also another opportunity for participants in that public meeting to provide comments and observations. You can go. We take feedback all year round. So I'm going to get to it at the end, but the board's email address is a great way to send us your input to the Water Level Committee throughout the year. Okay, next slide. Let's talk a little bit about some operational guidelines. The Water Level Committee has operational guidelines that serve as best practices for specific times of the year, as well as year-round. The operational guidelines document the interests and considerations upstream and downstream of the dam, and some of these considerations include property owners on the lake and rivers, lake recreation, impacts on Rainy River when there are large changes in outflow at the International Falls Fort Francis Dam, hydropower and dam safety, upper Rainy River levels, fish spawning, wild rice, and a myriad of other interests. The operational guidelines are available on the International Rainy Lake of the Woods Watershed Board's website, and I encourage you to go there and check them out if you're interested. To make water level decisions, the Water Level Committee meets virtually throughout the year with more frequent meetings leading up to and during the spring freshet. This slide outlines the timeline of Water Level Committee meetings with the public and specific agencies throughout the winter and spring. And after the spring freshet, the Water Level Committee continues to monitor conditions and meet as necessary. As you saw in this past year, we had some later high water, so we were certainly meeting well past the March meeting. And as a rule curve bands narrow in early summer through winter, water level targets are typically the middle of the rule curve as conditions allow. So the slide above just summarizes what I just said. On the left, some examples of our operational considerations, and on the right, talks about some of the meetings that we had as a committee over the past 9 or 10 months. And we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so what comes next? Well, right now we're in November, and so we'll start meeting more regularly here come February and March. And we haven't set all the dates of our upcoming meetings, but we will soon. And then on March 10th, 2025, we'll have a spring regulation plan. Will be initiated by the Water Levels Committee, and that will come after our first public meeting. And then again, as I said before, we'll have a second public meeting, virtual in April. And next slide, last slide. Okay, so this is where we get into some sort of open discussion and question and answers. I also put up here our website, our email address, and our website. If you have concerns or questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We monitor this all year round, not just during the high water season. Okay, Dan, back to you in the room.
Thank you.
So you've seen my face. That's the rest of the team behind there. And as a request by the county board to come and give an overview. So I think at this point we wanted to just see if there were specific questions, additional questions, other resources we can provide.
Well, I appreciate that overview. I know the public is concerned every spring, obviously.
Yep.
And the good springs, there really isn't any concern, and then when the water looks like it's creeping up, well then, it does get to be quite concerning, so.
It does.
It's nice to have that information to reiterate, I think annually, honestly, that, sometimes when the basin is full, it has no place for the water to go, so. I mean, unfortunately, as that is, but, so climate does play a lot into it, and snowfall and rain and things like that, so. Yep,
and looking at historical data and how that history is changing, how far back, it's definitely a topic of discussion, and so we adapt as quickly as we can. Travis and I are both the local members, and so in this basin in particular, I think we serve as a first line of information exchange, so folks are certainly know how to find both of us. But it's and so in addition to the listing of official meetings that we've had, there really is continual communication going on, particularly between March, April, and it can extend all the way through the end of July, sometimes August. So we are always at the helm, but also with a very supportive team of flood forecasting agencies, hydrological, engineering. So you all know where to find me if you have specific questions. But I think, as the Colonel pointed out, at any time you can bookmark those sites, throw out an email. I know Sheriff Headland has my number as well. Sometimes folks don't always know, even though most already know how to find me. There's still folks that, if there's a concern, that they don't maybe wouldn't know, and so they might call the sheriff or they might call you folks. So you're more than happy to direct them my way for questions, or to be in touch with the full water levels committee. So I don't know if you had any specific questions now that you have them on the line here.
I have, we've been hearing a lot about floodplain. Is there any connection or determinations of the levels? Is there any connection between the floodplain and the water levels?
Colonel, I'm not sure if you heard that, but the question is whether or not the revised floodplain discussions and maps have any correlation with the water levels or the roll curves.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I don't think so. They're certainly related in a world of a changing climate, with seemingly higher highs and lower lows. The FEMA, in its efforts to keep floodplain maps updated, and the Corps, in my non-water levels committee job, my day job, working for the Corps of Engineers, we're constantly trying to evaluate the hydrology in the basin, understand how changing weather conditions and hydrologic conditions in the basin are impacting our levees, our structures. Those we work hand in hand with FEMA on that, or FEMA uses our products to help understand sort of flood mapping. I think we're seeing the same impacts on the water level committee. Megan mentioned several of the factors that we use that when we set our targets. But the bottom line is that we can only control flow of water through this basin when it's when it's not at the extreme. When it's at the extreme, as we've seen more frequently recently, it's much harder to either prevent flooding. So I think that, if I understand the question, I think they're related in the sense that we're seeing changing weather patterns, which are presenting us with the extremes more frequently, which will certainly pique FEMA's interest as they redo flood mapping. Certainly, it's an interest for the Water Level Committee, and then I think both on the U.S. side and the Canadian side of the border, it's concerning because we want to make sure that our infrastructure is designed to support these changing conditions. I'll pass it over to Megan. I saw it off the screen. I don't know if she has any comments from her seat.
No, I think, Colonel, you captured that excellently. If the question was about relationship between roll curves and flood mapping, I think it's not the roll curves that influence it, but it's the extreme events that are outside the roll curves that would definitely influence. So a 2022 event would inform floodplain hazard levels, but that was not controlled by the roll curves.
Anybody Well, thank you, Pam. Thank you to the team as well for being here today. Appreciate you taking your time to inform us. We appreciate it, and keep up the good work. You've done a lot of explaining and a lot of education with the basin, and it sure is nice to see that, and like to see that continue too. Just keep the public on top of it, and just like I say, reiterate and educate, and let people know what's going on, and how the process works is important. So we do appreciate that.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, I guess just as an aside, on outside of the water level committee, obviously as a county on the U.S. side of the border, if there's ever flooding concerns, the Army Corps of Engineers, in particular the St. Paul District, the one that I command, has other levers that we can pull, we can use in times of emergency or pending crisis. So please keep us in mind if you're seeing things in the basin on the U.S. side of the border that deal with flood protection. We certainly want to be there should things get beyond the infrastructure that's currently in place.
We appreciate that. We appreciate your past help too and support.
Would that be like a spillway? And instead of everything having to go underneath the railroad bridge, do they ever have any plans of another spillway?
Did you catch that, Colonel? The question was about.
I didn't.
The questions.
I didn't catch that comment.
The question was, when we're talking about assistance, would an example of that be, say, a spillway when what is being passed through the rail bridge is insufficient? So would that include something like being able to absorb, I'm assuming, via spillway in those types of situations?
A spillway would be a much bigger conversation that would have implications on both the U.S. and Canadian side. The things I'm referring to are the sort of immediate need pump, sandbag, flood defenses for the immediate fight. If we're talking about longer term flood mitigation or protection, those are bigger conversations. And depending on what the proposal is, would determine what would impact the cost and the amount of collaboration between the U.S. and Canadian side, and then there could be boundary waters treaty concerns. So it's a much bigger question if we're talking about designing sort of spillways over.
But one of the examples, I guess, is up at Thunderbird. All of those very large pumps, those came through via the former colonel. So.
Because if they're going to add a railroad bridge, another railroad bridge, that might block it even more. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and that's I think what the Colonel's alluding to is that there's specific language in the Boundary Waters Treaty that is all considered, and reduced flow is one of those comments. So looks like we're clear, Colonel.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate time this morning listening to us, and I know we have a few months before we get into the spring freshet season, but just for your county and all those that live in the basin, just know that Megan and I and the Water Level Committee will be here monitoring conditions and doing everything we can to keep the water in the bank and as stable and predictable as possible.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela.
Thanks.
Next up is to approve public comment guidelines. A summary of the issue up for consideration is proof that public comment guidelines. Koochiching County Board of Commissioners encourages citizens input. Each citizen will be allowed to address the county board one time for up to 3 minutes in length. Comments should be addressed to the board as a body. When addressing the board, please state your name and address for the record. The board will take all information under advisement. As part of the county board protocol, it is unacceptable for any speaker to slander or engage in character assassination at a county board meeting. In addition, no political grandstanding, candidate endorsement, or other attempts to influence the outcome of an election shall be permitted. Any violation of the above statement shall result in the loss of your remaining time. Recommended action or motion is to approve a public comment guideline as follows. The Koochiching County Board of Commissioners encourages citizen input. Each citizen will be allowed to address the county board one time for up to 3 minutes in length. Comments should be addressed to the board as a body. When addressing the board, please state your name and address for the record. We'll take all admission, and it's the same as what I just repeated. So that would be the motion. We haven't had anything on policy or in effect that we can find here. But to keep a level playing field and kind of keep public comment for what public comment is and what it's intended for, this is one of the steps to doing that. That does not mean that people cannot address the board or put time on the actual agenda for discussion, but that would be vetted more so through administration and directed to the proper appropriate departments that may be not appropriate for this board here. So. It gets filtered to where it needs to be and gets taken care of. Actually, public comment certainly again is encouraged, and certainly appreciate everybody that has public comment. It doesn't always have to be positive. It can be negative public comment too, positive, negative, or concern stuff. So, like I say, I appreciate all of everyone that likes to participate in public comment, but just to kind of keep a general guideline and parameters of what your discussion is. So. With that, I'll pass over the board for consideration of a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner McIntyre.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. Next up, we have information system business is to approve the donation of surplus hardware. I do not see you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here.
Oh, you?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
We got you, Justin. Thank you. Sorry you didn't notice you there.
Perfect. Yeah, working from home, dealing with some food poisoning this morning, so hopefully this one won't take too long. Got an RBA today for donation of surplus devices. We have 8 laptops, 17 desktops, and 14 iPhones, all of which have been wiped and reset, so they don't have any of the county data or applications on them. Just looking for a board motion to deem them as surplus and then approve donation to KTI and the ACC member for refurbishment and donation to the community. And if any of those devices are not eligible for refurbishment, we'll send them to PCs for People to get the discount for the devices through PCs for People.
So they'd be donated, repurposed, and reused.
That's correct.
Wishes of the board.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Erickson. Any discussion? Well, thanks for putting these up there, Justin. That's nice to get them back out and get into use in the folks' hands that need them. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have no more use for them here, so we might as well get them out to somebody who needs them.
Sounds good. And thanks to the KTI ACC member as well, Carrie. She's been putting a lot of work into getting those devices out into the hands of people too, and along with training too. So that's cool. Great.
Yes, those classes that she has been putting on have been going great. There's a wait list of over 100 people, so we're trying to get some more classes scheduled too.
Sounds good. Great. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries. And next up is highway engineer business.
Thanks, Justin.
Yes, thank you, Justin. We're looking to solicit quotes for a fleet truck and a tandem axle.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So this RBA is in reference to soliciting quotes for one small fleet and one tandem axle plow truck. These are budgeted items for 2025. The reason I would like to solicit quotes ahead of time Reached out to NUS, who potentially will be supplying our chassis. They're looking at about a February build date if we put in our order here still in the first part of December. Towmaster, however, who outfitted our last truck, they're at fourth quarter of 2025. So the sooner we can get on that list, the better. And again, these are just for quotes. For the tandem axle, we'll use state bid. I can look ahead and tell you exactly what state bid is going to come back and say. Towmaster isn't going to, if we order in December, Towmaster has no upcharge in comparison to what we ordered earlier this year. NUS is looking at, it's about $9,000 extra, so about $7,000 in inflation, and then another $2,000 in stainless steel oil pan, which we didn't order on the last ones. But again, this is just for quotes. I'll bring it in after we get the quotes, probably the next board meeting for board approval. And then the small fleet, just replacing a 2011 Silverado that we bought from Land and Forest back in 2020. It's got about 160,000 miles, but it's in pretty rough shape, like a lot of our vehicles. We get our use out of them.
And you've received one tandem already?
We've got one tandem, the other one will be here about mid-December.
And then this other third one will be for, it looks like, Lowman area, perhaps?
Yeah.
Or Silverdale-ish, maybe?
Probably Lowman. It's dependent on whether the Silverdale truck keeps passing DOT inspections. You know, it's got a double frame on that particular one. It's got low miles, a little over 100,000. It's got a double frame, and the frame is starting to rust, and there's concern about that. So if it can continue to pass, we'll continue to use it.
I like the stainless steel oil pan.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, that makes good sense. I believe it or not, I've had a rust hole on a stainless on an oil pan of a vehicle I've owned for crying out loud. You can believe it, but yeah, it's a great idea, especially in those conditions, you know.
Too much salt on the road.
Yeah, that's the MnDOT road when we're traveling from one county road to the next.
There you go. That was a good answer.
It's the true answer.
The sluice they put on the road, that keep it clean.
Yeah.
So for consideration is a small fleet truck. Obviously, you go to the local dealers for quotes, and then the tandem, you just go through state bid and then
Go through state bid on the tandem, and yeah, we'll do state bid on the small fleet as well, but also go to Chrysler Dodge over there, and then Border Chev, GMC. Yeah.
Great.
Those tandems are getting old, 2003 and a 2001.
We maximize.
Yeah.
Right, wishes of the board.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Erickson. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion carries.
Thanks, Trent.
Thanks,
Thank
Trent.
you, Trent.
Thanks, Trent.
Right. Next up is public comment. Anybody online in person for public comment?
Yeah, come up there.
Yep, please come on up.
You guys knew I was coming here today, and now we have 3 minutes to talk. What is that all about? You guys knew this was going to take me more than 3 minutes, and you guys did that today. I can't believe that.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Lonnie Glover. I was born and raised here in International Falls.
Okay.
I'm here to make a personal public complaint against Ariel Olson for lying in court, slandering my name. So here's a copy for all you guys of my official complaint that you guys knew I was coming here today to do. I don't even know how I can possibly do it in 3 minutes, but I'm gonna try. Here's a copy for the original file, for the actual file. And then a copy of the peer review and the child forensic training program that she didn't follow. Here's the statute. You guys knew I was coming here today, and you guys added 3 minutes. It's unreal.
We're just
Unreal.
going by other guidelines from other
Yeah.
boards.
Yeah, the same day.
We've been talking about it for.
The same day I'm coming here, you guys did that. Okay. So my complaint is about Ariel Olson violating the county's trust by helping Jeff Nagloski prosecute people unlawfully. I can't even possibly go through this in 3 minutes, but so this is what she did. She led that little girl in that room, had her say a bunch of stuff about how I was touching her, and it was all untrue. And I had to wait for a transcript for my termination of parental rights case that you guys knew I was waiting on, and everything I said in there is true. And it came back, and that's your copy of what happened. I don't expect you guys to do much about this, but that's what happened. Here's the transcript of that case. It happened. She said the county could have did more against me before trial. It made her a advocate for the county rather than an independent forensic interviewer, like she was supposed to be. If you look at the statute page, quick, under subdivision 6, in the first sentence it says, the local welfare agency shall use a question and answer interviewing format with questioning as non-directive as possible to elicit spontaneous answers. On page 57, Ariel asked, has he ever? And the answer was no. On the same page, on 57 in the transcript.
So your time's up, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir, this may not be the appropriate venue for this type of conversation either, so.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you for the information.
It's absolutely the right venue for this.
We will pass that along, okay?
So.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. This is our county. I want to get a copy of this video too, by the way. How do I get that?
Great, any other public comments?
This is a joke. You guys are a joke.
If
You
there's
knew I
no
was
other,
coming
if
here
there's,
today.
please.
You knew I was coming here today to talk about
Just
this.
continue
You
your
had 3
conversation.
minutes.
Sir, you're, please, we have to finish this, please, thank
Yeah.
you.
No, please,
Is there
what?
any other business?
No.
Right, no other business, no other public comment, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach. All those in favor of adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And we are adjourned.